Hey, this is Kelley, and this is Still Can't Cook. Thank you for coming back. This is my second episode. Of course, the first one you got to meet me, figure out if you like me or not, and you do. That's why you're here. So this week I got to bring on my dear friend, Dean Winters, and it's going to be super fun to pay attention to what we have to say to each other. We have a lot in common and a lot of really fun stories. So I know I covered last week about what it's like when you turn 50 or when you're in your 50s. And one of the things I talked about, and I'm going to stay true to throughout every episode, is that when you're over 50, your bullshit meter is really fucking low. And so this week I had a couple of moments where I was like, who am I and who do I want in my life and who do I want in my corner, right? So leading into an incredible interview with an incredible friend of mine, I had to kind of take a second and say, what am I about this week? Like I had to basically tell someone who mattered more than probably anyone has mattered in my life to literally go fuck themselves. And I stand by it because they really should go fuck themselves. But in that same thing, there's a freedom and there's a fear that I wasn't quite sure how this was going to go today. So I'm so happy that I'm here. I'm so happy that you are here. Whatever happens in this ride that we're taking together, I promise you I'm going to keep you in the truth of where I'm at in the moment that I'm in it. And right now, I'm a little bit nervous about what's next. So if you sense that, you're not wrong. I'm a little like, what the fuck did I do? But you know what I did? I was fucking true to myself. That's what I did. I was true to myself and I stand by it. So I'm so glad you're here and I'm really excited about what's happening and I'm really excited to be here with you. So thank you for coming back. I want to welcome my first guest, a dear friend for a very long time. My friend Dean Winters is here. Hi, Dean.
Hi,
That's
Kelley.
Dean.
Want to thank Dave Chappelle for not being available. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. So we're going to talk about us and life and being in New York and growing up. Basically growing up together, even though we were in our... Well, he's a lot older than me, so...
not that much older.
A lot.
Let's keep it real.
A lot. In dog years, you'd
Like
be dead.
a year older.
No, like 35 years older.
But we do go back, like car seats.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Oh, wow. Go back like... Did you work on that? Did you wait to use that for this?
No, that's one of my favorite lines, yeah.
I've never even heard it before.
Never
Have you used it on another podcast?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
You have?
What? Oh, have I?
Yeah.
No, never.
Okay, that's for me. Save that for
just
mine.
for you, baby.
Thank you. So yeah, we... I would like to know, do you remember meeting me?
I do. The first time I met you was, I was doing the door at Sam's Cafe on 80th and 3rd.
Okay.
And there were a couple of girls there that worked at Live Bait. Remember Live Bait on 23rd Street?
23rd.
And these girls came up to Sam's Cafe and we were hanging out. And they're like, let's go down to Peggy Sue's. And my brother and I hadn't been there, but we had grown up with Matt Dillon, and we kind of heard about the place. So we went there one night, and John Maloney was working the door. I'll never forget walking up to Peggy Sue's the first time. And remember in New York, like when they had the police barricades, and it was like two like stands and then a long blue bar, right? And Johnny Maloney had the blue bar off, and he was swinging it at like 7 finance guys.
There's John.
And he was like out of his mind. And me and Scott walk up with these girls and we're like, what the fuck is going on here? And we walk inside and we get in. Johnny's like, yeah, come in. And we come in and lo and behold, you're the coat check girl.
Yeah.
And
I was coat check that night.
Yeah. I think you were like 16 years old.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
16. So backstory, my brother owned Peggy Sue's. My brother opened up Peggy Sue's when he was 22.
It was your brother and Terry and Matt, right?
Yeah, Terry Quinn, Matt Dillon was one of the investors. It was a bunch of investors, but my father owned a bar in Brooklyn, and my brother took the liquor license and moved it into the city and then opened up this club when I was like 15 or 16 years old. So at first, I used to sit at the door with the box. Remember, I used to collect the money at the door. And then as it got colder and we weren't busy enough, I did coat check. So I probably met you.
I think I probably met you in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you at the front.
Yeah.
I started going there on the regular.
Yeah. And it was the hottest spot in the city.
It was a great place, man.
I would sit and Pat would come down and say, he's like, how you doing? And I'm like, I got like $200.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, Kelley, how much you charging to get in? I was like, $5. It's $5. And he'd be like, $1. You got to say $1.
Yeah.
I'm like, you sound like an asshole. I'm not saying
and
$1.
What was the, remember the upstairs? There was like a private room upstairs.
Yeah. Well, we did Peggy Woo's downstairs.
Right.
And then we did the roof. And then the sound studio above us, we used to rent out the sound studio.
Yeah, but I remember being granted access to like some room upstairs once, and I walked in there, and it was like Malcolm Forbes and like all these like heavy hitters, right?
Crazy.
I was like working the door at a nightclub. I was like a nobody. I wasn't even acting then.
Crazy.
And I just remember being like, what's going on here?
I would walk in and I mean, I would take the money. I remember when I was collecting the money, I remember I had Grace Jones, I had Michael Hutchins, I had everyone who's anybody would stop at that door, and I would make everybody pay. The funny thing is, people would be like, "Do you know who I am?" And the more famous they were, I'm like, "That's $5 for my brother, buddy."
Exactly.
If you're that rich, Michael Hutchins came in, he was like, "That's me." And In Excess was playing "You're My Kind" on that, and I was like, "Really, dude? It's $5. It's $10 for you because I know you're rich."
I got into a bar brawl with Michael Hutchins in Hong Kong.
Really? What, together? He was a little dude. So did you?
No,
have to
I was
protect
living
him?
in Hong Kong, and I was dating this girl. And
Hong Kong?
Yeah, I lived in Hong
That's
Kong.
weird.
No, she wasn't Asian. She was Australian.
Lies.
Fuck up. So I'm dating this girl, and we go to this nightclub, and she's all of a sudden she's like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "My boyfriend just walked in," and I look over. I'm like, "Michael Hutchins is your boyfriend?"
Seriously.
She's like, yeah. And then this thing happened, that thing happened. And then I went to the bathroom. And when I came out of the stall, he was there and he went for me.
Oh,
And,
at each other. I thought you were like together fighting other people.
No,
You fought each other.
He went for me. He threw a punch and
You better have beat him up. He was a little dude.
He threw a punch and he missed, and then I cracked him. But of course he had security with him.
Yeah.
And those guys did a little tap dance on my head. So
Well, that was back in the
it didn't last long.
Yeah. He was a little guy. He was one of the, I mean, for me, so Peggy Sue's, my brother opened when I think he might have been 24. I was 14 when they opened Peggy Sue's. And so I would collect the money at the door, and I would, as soon as the door was closed, I'd have to go sit in the freezer. He'd make me sit in the icebox.
In the walk-in?
In the walk-in cooler. Like I wasn't allowed to socialize because God forbid. But I also had like been bad in school, and at that point wasn't in class anymore. So that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But my first time meeting you, that I remember meeting you, you were bartending at 119.
119, yeah.
And I used to go in there with Rob, and I used to play pool.
Yeah.
And one night you were behind the bar, and Rob and I had never been like together. I don't want to be too gross.
Yeah.
Together. And that one night we were playing pool at 119, and he said, "If I win, we're leaving together." And you were bartending. And I was like going back to, I was getting Coronas or Rolling Rock, whatever it was. And I was like so excited. I'm like, "We're leaving." And we went and we tried, and didn't, it was supposed to be the first romantic night, but didn't go so well for him.
We had some Western times in 119.
Yeah, my God, that was crazy.
That was like, when I was a bartender in New York, I worked in 17 clubs and in bars, and 119 was my last stint before I started working as an actor. And
did you model?
Yeah,
You did, right?
It's a long story. I got out of school. I went back after I graduated to my parents' place in Connecticut, and I was dating this girl who was an opera singer from Lincoln Center. And I got into a fight in the bar that I worked at, and I woke up the next morning and I went to the driveway, and my car had been beat to pieces with a baseball bat or something.
Wow.
And so I called my roommate from California, and I was like, "Look, you know what?" I said, I fucking hate it back here. He goes, "Why don't you just come out here and get a job working in California?" I'm like, "What am I going to do?" He goes, "Just come out here." So I wake up my parents at like 11 o'clock at night. I said, "Hey, you know what? I want to go to California." It's like, "You know what? We'll talk about it in the morning." I said, "No, I'm actually leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning."
Oh my God.
And they're like, "What?" Yeah, I was very impulsive back in the day.
Yeah, I kind of remember.
So and my brother was
He's
there.
changed. He's
Yeah, now I'm much more grounded.
Very more grounded and calm.
and so my brother, he was there, and I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like trembling. And my brother, in his pajamas, got into the car with me. He goes,
Which one? Scott?
Scott. Yeah, my brother Scott. And he goes, "I'm going to drive with you." So he drove with me to Kansas City, and I dropped him off at the airport in Kansas City in his pajamas, and he flew back home in New York in his pajamas from Kansas City.
I think we all need a Scott in our life.
Yeah. Everyone does. And then I drove to California, and then I lived in California for 11 months, and I worked as a bartender, bar back, waiter. I worked on a high-end yacht. I lied and told them that I could water ski, and I was driving all these rich people off of Malibu on a tender, and I was like, it's amazing I didn't run over anybody in the
What year was this? When was
this?
this?
Is 1988. And
So
then
that was at Peggy Sue's open that year, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't meet you at Peggy Sue's until like 1990 or 90. I think it was 99.
I think Peggy Sue's opened in 86. I was 86.
Yeah,
86.
And so then my best friend in California, I was living in Manhattan Beach. He goes, "I'm moving to Hong Kong. Why don't you come to Hong Kong?" I'm like, Hong Kong? What the fuck am I going to do in Hong Kong?
Asian girls.
He goes, just get a job in advertising. Because at that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to work in advertising. So he goes to Hong Kong. 2 weeks later, I sell my car in LA. I moved to Hong Kong on a fucking whim again. Like I was very whimsical.
Yeah, I don't know any of this. This is all new to me.
And so I moved to Hong Kong, and we had this amazing place in the mid-levels, which is halfway up the mountain in downtown Hong Kong. I was working out of this office from DLJ, and I was cold calling ad agencies. And I ended up getting 2 job offers, one from Reader's Digest and then one from Saatchi & Saatchi to work in their PR department.
So weird. I can't even imagine.
No, I know.
It's like sliding doors.
So I got this job. I got these job offers on a Wednesday, right, in Hong Kong. And I had to make a decision by Friday. Yeah. And I was fucking miserable. I was like, I can't go to work with this. I can't wear a suit.
Yeah.
I can't fucking do this.
You do now. It's just kind of.
Yeah, I know. It's different, right? So on Thursday, I go to downtown Wan Chai in Hong Kong, and I'm wearing my suit, and I go to a bar. I think it was called the Jack Daniels bar. I forget. And I start drinking like a fucking fish. And I'm there. And at like 2:30 in the afternoon, I'm like on the bar like this. And I'm like literally like talking to myself. The bartender doesn't give a fuck about me. There's no one in the bar. And I feel a tap on my shoulder. And I look up. And there's this girl. She's blonde, really kind of cute, like fit. And I'm like, wow, what? She's like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm like, leave me alone, right? I was like that guy, right? And then she was like, just kept gnawing at me. And I go, what? And she goes, what's going on? She goes, buy me a drink. I was like, all right. So I buy her a drink. We start talking. I tell her my story. I'm like, yeah, I have to make a decision by tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I go, what's your story? She goes, I'm an actor, but I'm a martial artist from Orlando, and I'm doing an independent kung fu film in Hong Kong, like a no budget movie. And I'm like,
I don't even
really?
know you.
Like, oh, that's fucking cool. She goes, here's the thing. She goes, the producers asked us to look for Americans to be extras in this movie. She goes, do you want to be an extra in the movie? And I'm like, what? Hold on a second. You want me to be in a kung fu movie? I'm like, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. And she's like, all right. I go, when? She goes, now. I go, what do you mean now? She goes, I have to go back to work in 45 minutes. I'm like, I just bought you 3 drinks. I go, what are you doing? She goes, I'm doing a fight scene in the street, and there's a cafe scene, and they need some Americans sitting at tables. You're gonna go do a fight scene after 3 drinks? She's like, yeah. She goes, I'm a fucking badass. She goes,
Who is this person?
I had no idea, because this is back in the day, before cell phones, before anything, right? So
whoever you are, find us.
Yeah. So I go to the bathroom. I clean myself up. I go to the set. They're like, yeah, you're approved. I sit there and I watch her work. Last time I ever saw her. So I'm sitting at this table, and there's this model there from San Francisco. We start talking. He's like, I tell him my sob story. I'm telling everyone, yeah, I got to make a decision by tomorrow at 5 p.m. He's like, yo, fuck that. He goes, they love American guys in Hong Kong. He goes, just hang out here. He goes, and get an agent and start doing commercials and catalog work. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't even know what those words were.
Yeah.
He goes, if you're serious, I'll bring you in to meet my agent tomorrow. I'm like, what?
Are you friends with him still?
No. Nobody. I met a lot of people over my life that I just kind of drifted away from. And this is, once again, this is before cell phones.
Yeah.
Before any of that shit, right? So we do the movie, never see her again. The next day I wake up, I go to meet him at his agency. I walk in there, and there's this little Asian woman behind the desk, and here's a desk, and all you can see is her face and her like. I'm like, yeah, I'm here. I'm John's friend. She's like, all right. She's like, where's your book?
Oh, she thinks you're a model.
I go, what's a book?
Yeah.
She goes, your portfolio. I go, what's a portfolio? She goes, your pictures. Do you have any pictures? I'm like, I got my driver's license. So she's looking at me, I gotta have like 10 heads. So I give her my driver's license. She's like, and she's looking at me, driver's, blah, blah, blah. And back then, I was fit, I was like younger, blah, blah,
you were
blah,
hot.
all American.
Hot. He was hot.
And she's like,
still
all
hot,
right.
but hot.
She writes down and she goes, go here. I go, what is it? She goes, it's a go-see for a campaign. I go, what's a go-see for a campaign? She's like, just go there and meet them and see what happens. I'm like, all right.
It's literally exactly what it sounds like. Go see.
Fucking relax, right? So I go there. I look like a backup dancer for NSYNC. I was wearing Timberlands, a pair of overalls, and a white t-shirt, right? This is 1988.
I remember him.
And I'm tan, and I walk into this room in Hong Kong, and there's like 8 people behind this long desk, and they're all looking at me. They asked me for my book. I'm like, I don't have a book. Here's pictures. But she had taken my driver's license and she had blown it up on a Xerox machine. So I handed out like 8 copies of my driver's license.
Dead from this.
And everyone's looking at it, and no one's like really vibing with me. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what the fuck's going on? But there was one guy that spoke English, and we started chattering, and then like he and I started vibing, and all of a sudden we're off to the races, and I'm winning him over, and they don't know what I'm saying, but they're all laughing.
Right.
So I go home. Next day I wake up, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I have to make a decision by 5 o'clock, right? At like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a phone call from Irene Marie. She's like, oh yeah, I don't know how to tell you this. So you just booked the campaign for Mandarina Duck luggage and outerwear. I'm like, what is that? She goes, you're going to China, mainland China, on Saturday, tomorrow.
So you know it's all making sense to me.
Yeah,
now.
and she goes,
all the China, and
she goes,
all that's happening.
yeah, and she goes, you're gonna shoot editorial. I go, what's editorial? She's like, stop asking questions. She goes, you're gonna shoot editorial catalog and a TV commercial. I'm like, all right, how much does it pay? She goes, $15,000. I'm like,
holy
what?
Shit.
Like, I'm like, holy shit. So I go home. I tell my roommates. I call Saatchi and Reader's Digest. I go, listen. I said I had a death in the family. I have to go back to New York. I'm so sorry. I can't say yes to the job. I appreciate it. So they're like, oh, we're so sorry, blah blah. I go to China. I do the thing.
Right now, someone Saatchi's
3
like,
weeks later.
He lied.
3 weeks later, I'm on every bus stop, every subway stop. Every TV commercial in Hong Kong. I'm like an overnight commercial sensation. Like bam, like that, right? It's just like, what the fuck? So I stay in Hong Kong for 5.5 months, and I'm working, and I was a rager. I was out of my fucking tree.
We don't need to talk about that.
I started dating this girl. I met this girl playing tennis. This blonde girl from San Diego.
They're not all blonde. He's literally making this up.
No, she was blonde.
Lies.
I'm not making it up.
She was a blonde Asian.
We started playing tennis. We started hanging out, and we're hanging out together, right? And everything is groovy. And then one night I go to there was a nightclub in Hong Kong called California, and I walk out of California to have a smoke, and I'm sitting outside, and this Mercedes pulls up. It's like a movie. Mercedes pulls up, windows come down. Some of the baddest looking guys I've ever seen in my life. Guy in the driver goes, are you Dean Winters? I go, yeah. He goes, you need to leave Hong Kong.
What?
And I'm looking at them, and I'm like, and I knew that they were serious. I was like, fuck, right? I mean, I know a threat when I know a threat. So I go home. I call her the next day. She's like, oh, I'm afraid this is going to happen. I go, what are you talking about?
It's because of her.
She goes, I'm like associated with like a Chinese gang, and I date one of the leaders. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
This is just a prequel to the rest of your life.
Yeah,
right?
no,
this
no,
is like
no.
the beginning of
it's
all.
seriously.
Yeah, this is the beginning. Like, this is the fucking butterfly effect.
So I go back.
So
I go back. I tell my roommates, and so they throw me a huge party. We get wrecked. The next day, I barely make my flight. We land in Sri Lanka, and I forgot to get my bags off the runway, and I end up in Rome for 7 days with no money. I'm sleeping in the park in Rome, like with nothing. And then I make it up to Milan, and I checked in with an agency called Why Not, and I had some connections, and I had a few photos, and I started working a little bit. And then I came back to New York, and that's when I started working at Sam's Cafe. And then I went back to Milan. Long story short, came back to New York. I went to Miami. I lived in Miami for 10 months.
That I remember.
The modeling thing, like I was never that guy. I was like never jacked. I was never fit like that. I was like doing like catalog shit, the stupid stuff, right?
That's the stuff that paid, by the way.
But it paid the bills, right? So my friend Brian Ward, rest in peace, passed away. He calls me one night. He was a model, and he was also bartending on this is like 1989 South Beach. So this is just post Miami Vice.
Yeah.
South Beach had not blown up yet, but it was like fucking raw, right? And he was working at a bar. He goes, I got a gig bartending after hours. He goes, I need a bartender. Can you bartend? And I never bartended in my life. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He goes, all right, meet me here at 4 o'clock. So I go to his bar on Collins and Ocean and like 8th Street at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And we go into the alleyway, and there's a white hoopty. Remember the old limos, right? We get in this hoopty. The windows are blacked out with garbage bags. And there's this giant guy sitting there with a cash register. And he looks at us. He goes, are you the bartenders? And he's like, yeah. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And we drive like 45 minutes north up to Fort Lauderdale, and we go to a strip club, and we pick up a bunch of dancers. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And then we drive an hour, and we end up in the Everglades in the middle of nowhere. And there's a giant, it was like Porky's.
How do you have better stories than me? This is unbelievable.
It was like Porky's. It was like a giant barn in the middle of nowhere, and it was an after hours club. So we go in, we set the cash register, set up the bar, blah, 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 and I'm winging it. All of a sudden, like 5:30, 6 a.m., all these gangsters start walking in, like just like the toughest people I'd ever seen in my life. The girls are dancing. Everyone's playing poker on the tables. Everyone's doing drugs, and me and Brian are trying to keep up. We close down at like 2:30 in the afternoon. Get back in the hoopty, smoked out windows because we had no idea where we were.
Yeah.
We go back to South Beach, and I go back to my hotel room, and I'm like, all right, I need to change my life. and I went out that night with Brian, and I had a whole experience that night. Ended up walking down the beach at like noon, wearing motorcycle boots, a black t-shirt, and black jeans. Everyone's in bikinis and topless. I'm walking to the waterline looking like that. I walked right to I was living in the Clevelander Hotel.
Oh, Jesus.
And I walked to the Clevelander, I packed my bags, and I flew home, and I was like, and I threw my portfolio away, and my brother woke me up, and I started taking classes with Bill Esper.
Perfect. I went to Esper.
Yeah, and so that's how everything happened. And I started bartending, started booking like small jobs like NYPD Blue, this and that, and then met Tom Fontana one night and did a couple of jobs on Homicide, and then he wrote the part for me on Oz, and then bam, here we are. So,
I mean, first of all,
isn't that a crazy story?
Obsessed with this story.
It's going right.
Hate that I don't know most of it at all. I've never heard any of it.
I don't tell that much. I was really lost, and my brother was living on Waverly and Mercer, and I was crashing at his place after working, late nights at Sam's Cafe, and then going after hours.
What was he doing? Was he already?
So Scott was working on Wall Street, and then he went to the Palladium one night and met a girl who convinced him to quit his job and become an actor, much to my parents' dismay. And so then I was in Europe at the time, and when I came back, he had been a year into it. And then, he woke up one morning or one afternoon, and I was just coming back from after hours. I was like that guy. And he basically slapped me into shape, and I went to meet this guy, Bill Esper. And then I took my first class, and I remember going back to my apartment in the East Village on 13th and 2nd and sitting on the couch, and I broke down crying. I was like, I found a home. It just felt really natural for me.
So it's funny. I studied with Esper, and I lived on 12th between 1st and 2nd with Rob. I always wanted to do something. I always, my sister was a model and prettier than me. My brother, Philip, was very bad. Philip was the black sheep. He's since sober and amazing and fabulous. But when we were kids, it was like, I was kind of funny and interesting and quirky, and Roseanne was beautiful. Philip was kind of always getting in trouble. And then Patrick was just handsome and smart and perfect and, modeling, and then open to the clubs and the bars. So I kind of was lost a bit in what I was going to do. And I just always knew they got all these other traits, and I definitely they would argue it, but they'd be wrong. I got the funny, right? Yeah. So I was like, what am I going to do with that? And I didn't want to go to school. So I got in trouble. I got kicked out of high school. And I decided, my father was like, if you're not going to class, I'm still waking you up. You're going to act like you're going to school. You're not going to get to sleep all day. So I started taking acting classes. Yeah. And I first went to Sandy Sharon and Bruce Levy. And my mom came with me. That's how bad I was. They were like, we're going to go with you. My mother's like, if you think I'm going to let you go to another class you're not going to show up to. Yeah. So my mom and I would drive into the city, and my mom was actually really good. My mother found herself in like her first monologue. Poor Barbara was the name of the
Your mom was taking classes with you?
Yeah, my mom worked as an actor. My mom did theater. My mom was really... Amazing. My mom had this monologue where it was, I put the key in the lock and it wouldn't turn. Remember we used to have to learn monologues? Yeah. This was a monologue about this woman who apparently everyone always thought she was so in control. And the monologue just starts to go off, and she's like, so I put my key in the lock and it wouldn't turn. And I mean, it wouldn't turn. And I'm watching my mother. At first I said, don't tell anybody you're my mother. Yeah. Don't embarrass me. Like, I'm too cool for this. So she sat at one side of the classroom, I sat the other side, and we had to do these monologues. And she got up and she did this monologue, and she was like, and I put my goddamn key into that fucking lock and it wouldn't turn. And it was like about this woman who's always keeping control. Yeah. And I was crying. I'm like, that's my mom. It's my mother. First class. Yeah. First class. I'm like, never mind. You're my mom. Yeah. And then it was great. We went to acting school together. But I went to...
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. And she worked. But to be honest, my thing was that I wanted something creative. I always wrote when I was a kid. I wrote stories and poems and like anything that was sad. Like my parents found my poem book, and my mother was like, are you suicidal? Yeah. And I was like, if I didn't have a pen, maybe I would be, but just give me back my fucking pen and let me talk about death. But then I went to William Esper, and it was incredible.
Cathartic.
Incredible. Yeah. And you didn't know, like, your eyes are blue, your eyes are blue, your eyes are blue, your eyes are blue. And I was like, what the fuck is happening here?
The whole repetition. Yeah.
One of the weird things, I don't know if you had this, but when you go through life, right? Anyone who's studied acting, you go through life and you're taught to kind of put a shell on things. You put a shell. You don't react to somebody's, what you really believe their intentions are, or we'd be walking around hurt all the time. Yeah. So I was in the midst of Esper, and I was working at Peggy Sue's. And like people would come up in Gemini Lounge, or they would just have like, it wasn't Gemini, it was Naked Lunch. It was Naked Lunch in Peggy, so it was way after that. And if anybody was mean to me, I was like emotionally affected by it. I was like, oh fuck, you can't live your life like this. Like it works when you're an actor. It works back to, but you can't actually take that reacting to someone day to day. So it was really hard for me to kind of switch off, but it was an incredible experience.
Well, I mean, when I was a bartender and I was going through the motions at Esper, and and I was just like,
remember having a routine?
I was like a hair trigger as a bartender. I mean, just because I was so, like, I'd always been kind of closed up. I had like a steel gate in front of me.
Yeah.
And what Esper did was he unlocked that gate.
Yeah.
And, pulled up the blinds, and so I was exposed, and it got me into a lot of dicey situations as a bartender, because back in the 90s we just like got into a lot of bar fights,
and it was okay. The fact that you came out, you said something about like having a blacked out car, curtains, like with the you couldn't do that now.
No.
You couldn't half the shit it was like you could get into a bar fight and have a drink with the dude the next day and everything be cool.
Oh yeah.
Now you're in jail. Now you're like on.
I remember getting into a bar fight at 119, and one of the guys it was a massive brawl over the pool table, and one of the guys that we were fighting got hurt, and I remember taking him to the hospital.
I mean, that was the thing that would happen. Like my brothers would fist fight and then carry each other home.
Yeah.
If they would beat each other up in the street. My brother like, no, you go out there. My mother would say, go pick your brother up. And then Philip would throw Patrick over his shoulder, or vice versa.
It's a different world now.
It was so fun though.
It was fun. It was
Peggy Sue's. I mean, going back to where we started.
I think that time period in New York from 1990 to 1997 or 8.
That's when I started at the hotel.
That was, that's when bottle service and cell phones started creeping in. But from 90 to 97, 98, I think that New York City, there wasn't a better place on the planet. I mean, there still isn't, but
you try to talk to them. I try to tell people. So my brother opened Peggy Sue's, and I believe it was 1986 or 1987, and I was either 14 or 15 years old. And imagine, this place went from a bar, 2 flights up, teeny tiny bar. So one of the things that I think there was an article once that talked about Peggy Sue's, and it literally changed nightlife from clubs to what became the lounge scene. It was the first actual lounge. Where you came in and it was pool table and dancing and then all of a sudden you switched over at night. They put that big piece of wood over the pool table and it was a nightclub. Yeah. And we were handing out flyers and trying to get people to come in one day, and 2 weeks later, man, it was like all of University Place was closed off. You couldn't get in our door. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. We didn't charge anybody to get in because that would have been, I forgot I was talking about $5. That was one party. It was like crazy what happened back then. And you would walk in the door and it would be you and Christy Turlington and
back then, like not to be like the back in the day guy, but we had a theater company on White Street, White and Church, right across from the Tribeca Grand, which is now the Roxy. And there's a neon lighting store now, but back in the day, it was the Baby Doll Strip Club. We had a theater company at 41 White.
Wait, what was the name of the theater company?
The Workhouse. My brother was like one of the main attractions at the Workhouse, and he was doing all the plays, and I was still in class. I was still like struggling, but I was bartending, so I would be the guy that took the tickets, took your money for your tickets, and then at intermission, I had a bar. So while the first act is going on, I would take all the 20s and I would go across the street to the Baby Doll Lounge. And I would go to the strippers. I was like, give me all your ones. Here's the 20s. And we would trade 20s for singles.
The opposite of a bartender. Remember cashing out your 20s for the singles? It was
and that's when I met the Hells Angels. And like, so then, I became friends with those guys, and those guys started coming to my bar at 119 and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole relationship there with Oz and Chuck Zito and this one and that one. But my point is like back in the day, like New York was just like, it was just colorful. Amazing. You know what I mean? It was just like, there was no cell phones. So, it wasn't like you would tell someone, meet me here. And if they didn't get into the club, they're fucking shit out of luck. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, it was like, meet me here. And it wasn't like texting, oh, we're going to do 7 clubs in one night. You know what I mean?
I would go out. And back then there was something called Club Courtesy. And I would go out and I would go to the door and be like, hey, my brother's Patrick Fahey from Peggy Sue's. And they'd be like, no, she's already inside. Yeah. My friends would go and say they were me. And I'm like, no, I'm real. Yeah. How are you going to prove it? Like, how are you going to prove it?
It was a beautiful.
It was amazing. So about us, which is kind of cool, is that even though we were in the same world, I was really not as cool or involved as my brother and my siblings were. I was kind of the forgotten Fahey. I like to say all. I mean, I call myself that. But our friendship kind of spanned a really long period of time. But it'd be more like, hey, hi, how are you? Bye-bye.
Yeah, it wasn't a real friendship like we've had since probably since 2009.
Yeah.
When that whole thing happened.
Yeah. So you just had a bad situation come up, and someone brought it to my attention, and oddly, for some reason, I had your number in my cell phone.
Yeah.
And I just felt the need to continuously check on you, even if it was annoying.
Yeah. No, and you checked on me. And it was beautiful. And then without going into the whole thing, then I had a really bad stalker, and it was life threatening.
Yeah.
And so the NYPD said, we're going to move you into a safe house.
Yeah,
and I called you.
Yeah.
And my safe house was a Soho Grand.
It sure was.
And my first night there, I had a huge party in the lobby.
I don't know what he's talking about.
I had a police presence outside the hotel. And then
it was a scary situation. It
was scary. I was there for 9 days, and then I think on the third or fourth night, it was.
Well, you were losing it. Well,
it was February, and I was losing.
He doesn't. Let me just say. Yeah. A lot of men are like, he doesn't like being told what he can and cannot do, and very ethical. Yeah. And it was an unethical situation where it's like, what do you mean I can't do this because someone else is doing something incorrect? So he was kind
hard. These guys threatened my life.
It was difficult for him to maintain his composure.
And for me to be like cooped up. I mean, the Soho Grand is great, but just to be cooped up, I felt like I was in solitary.
Yeah.
And then so one night, I just.
You decided he was going to leave. You called me. You said, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I told you I went to Kelley.
Home.
And it was. I'll never forget. It was snowing. And it was late. It was probably like 11 o'clock. I was like, I'm fucking out of here. She's like, what are you talking? And I had a cast on my foot.
Yeah.
I was on crutches, and I remember leaving the hotel in like a leather coat.
Had a leather coat. He had no hat, no gloves.
No hat, no gloves, and like maybe.
And he's walking home with a broken.
Because my home was 4 blocks away. I'm like, I'm going back to my fucking house. Yeah. I'm gonna live like a fucking.
I'm not paying attention to anybody else. No one's gonna keep me out of my house.
Yeah, they can come to my fucking house. I don't give a flying fuck. So I go to I hobble on my crutches in a snowstorm. I get home with a cast on my foot and a cast on my left hand. I get in my apartment. I go upstairs. I get a call.
The phone rings when he gets. And this is. I remember. The phone
rings
when he gets inside his house.
Yeah. So I get home and there's a phone call, and it's the one of the detectives on the case. He goes, how's it going? I go, good. He goes, how's the hotel? I go, it's great. He goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm watching a movie. He goes, no, you're not. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, we checked on you. You're not in your room. And I go, all right, listen. You know what? Fuck these guys. Yeah. I went home. He's like, here's the deal. Because at this point, they had targeted the guys. They had them on chatter.
Yeah.
The guys thought that they were talking to me on email. And they got their cell phone, and they intercepted a phone call that these guys were coming across the Williamsburg Bridge to Soho. And the cops were like, look, these guys could be coming to your house because they had threatened to cut my head off. And I'm like, what? So they go, get outside as fast as you can. We're sending you a police cruiser.
God, I love this for you. You were so pissed. You were like, I'm not leaving.
So it's like, it's like 2:30 in the morning, and I walk outside, and there's a snowstorm. It was like 1.5 feet of snow on Van Dam Street. And all I see, like, the lights in New York on the snow is so beautiful. It's so quiet. It's like no one. And you just see this cop car just do a fishtail on Hudson, and like literally almost does a 360 and comes down Van Dam Street and literally screams at me, get in the fucking car now. And that guy jumped in the car. And they drove me back to the Soho Grand, and then a couple of days later, they ended up busting the guys. But you took care of me in that.
But when it first happened, just again, talk about stuff that we can talk about. But at one point, he was so mad to be threatened. Do you remember? You were like, you were with Tom, with Fontana when you got the phone, and he was like, fucking come find me, man. I was like, that's not what you want to do.
Oh, yeah. I was like,
he was like, you were,
I was like, you know where I live, motherfucker.
Yeah, it was too much.
Come here right now.
It became too much.
I just had, at this point, I had 9 surgeries.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd had 8 amputations. I was like, you know what?
Done.
Fuck these motherfuckers, man. If God couldn't kill me, you guys aren't going to fucking kill me.
But they could have, actually. You were wrong. You were wrong. God missed out. These guys were coming to finish the job.
Yeah, maybe they're working for God. I don't know. Maybe God was pissed. But anyway, it all worked out.
It all worked out.
And kudos to you, because like you guys took care of me, and and I'll never forget that first night being in the
salon.
Basically, and just like all my friends came and we had this party.
Yeah.
And none of my friends really knew the story until that moment. And everyone was just sitting around. There was like 25 people. They're like, what, why are you here? I mean, it was like.
I remember, so it was funny because you were, first of all, let me just, again, backtrack to Peggy Sue's. There was these core group of guys that were cool and working, and you're one of those guys. And so it was kind of one of the chips for me in becoming my own person outside of the Fahey 5.
Yeah.
There's only 4 of us, but the Jackson 5, I have to make the reference work. I have to make the reference work. Was that I established a brand new relationship with you separate from all of the rest of my family. Yeah. It was kind of interesting because I'd be like, oh, Dean and this and Dean that and Dean that. And everyone would be like, Dean Winters? I'm like, yes, my dude, you know? It was kind of nice to...
Well, yeah, but at the same time, you were also like making your bones at the Soho Grand. Like you were just like, you know, leapfrogging everyone there. And then you ended up becoming like the grand dame of the Soho Grand, as we all called you.
Apparently.
It was such a natural fit for you. I mean, you lived across the street.
Yeah.
But you were so good at it because, you know, you always take care of everybody. You took care of Dave a lot. You took care of this one and that one. I mean, everyone just loved Kelley Fahey. I mean, like you were like... I mean, I don't know how like they're working without you there, honestly.
I don't know how they're working without me either. Yeah. Luckily, we work together again now because I do the travel stuff on the side. And one of the great things with us, I loved being in the like the minutia of it. I wanted to do all of it, like stay under my name, and this is where you can go, and when is elite, and like paying attention to all the working parts of it was really something that I love about doing that and working at that hotel.
And on top of that, we were friends, so it was like,
well, it kind of was a nice kind of way to.
It was organic. It was it was never like I never abused the privilege with you ever. You know, I never asked for anything on the
I always wanted you to come by more and hang out more. You're one of those people that when you did stop by, I was so happy to, when I got to the stage at the hotel where I was no longer carrying a tray and I could sit and chill out. You're one of the people I'd be like, I would text you, hey, you around? Because when you came, I could relax, we can hang out, we could talk.
I usually, whenever you called, I usually came.
Yeah, you do. It's true. Yeah, it's true. So I'm going to talk about another funny thing about us. So one of the things people say all the time based on our friendship, and I remember when I met your family, was that you and I never had any sexual...
We never hooked up.
Ever.
Yeah.
It's never even been a tension. There's
it probably should have happened at one point.
But that'd be your fault. I blame him. But the funny part of, one of the things that, you know, again, there was those guys, there was my brother's friends, the Tommy Hills, the Jim McCaffreys, you guys were like, you know, Billy Worths of the world. Geez Louise, hot under the collar. They were so hot, excluding my brother. That's kind of gross, but the rest of them were pretty hot.
Who else? Kevin Flood. There was a whole
everybody. I was saying we bonded a lot of the guys that are gone. Like we have a lot of friends that have passed.
Well, Kevin's still around.
I don't know Kevin. Do I know Kevin Flood? Yes, I do.
You know Flood, yeah.
I do know Flood. But so funny story with us. People would ask all the time, "Oh, you know Dean? Oh, you and Dean Winters? Oh, that'd be hot." And I'm like, "No, he only dates Asian girls," which is just a joke.
That was during the time.
It was a true story, but
pretty notorious for that. I mean, why not?
But we were out one night and we're all sitting around with a group of people, and I don't know who it was. One of my friends were like, "So whatever happened with you guys?" And Dean was like, it's like my sister. And I was like, did you hear that, Dean? And he goes, no, what was it? I go, the fucking door of opportunity closing on this entire situation. And he's like, oh no, I will fuck you right now. I'll take you in the staircase. Right now. In the elevator right now.
I'll show you what's up.
I was like, no, that was the window of opportunity closing on the two of us ever. You said yuck. You basically yucked me.
We're still alive.
As long as we're still breathing, this opportunity. But yeah, I'm really excited to have you as my guest. This is like fun. I'm
honored to be the first guest. And I think this is a great idea. I mean, I love the title.
Thank you.
Still doesn't know how to cook, right?
Still can't cook. I can't, you know. My mom, I don't know my mom, I did all these things. I was, you know, always doing a million different things. Bartender, server, cocktail waitress, writer, actor. And she'd say she's cute as a button, but she still can't cook. I love to cook, but because I live by myself, I have girlfriends like once every couple of years. It's like, I just don't cook. I love it, but cooking for one, I just, like, some people are like, oh, I love doing that. I'm like, are you fucking... No, they don't. They're dicks. Are you fucking crazy? It's so fucking depressing. You like going shopping for one and cooking for one and cleaning up for one. So sad. Get the fuck out of here. Liars. They're liars. I felt so satisfied. You know what feels fucking satisfying? Uber Eats. That feels really satisfying. Yeah, bingo bango. You know what I need to talk about? Take the garbage down to the garbage pail in the corner. I need to talk about this. I need to talk about dating because I want to say something because I need to bring this up because it's fucking annoying me. So you know what Raya is? Well, it's a dating app, right? Okay, yeah. I've never been on a dating app. Okay, well, I'm just going to bring this up because I checked it again yesterday. I was at Soho Grand. I was working at the hotel. On again and off again, and broke up. We had one of our many problems. His fault. And I decided I was going to try to do this app, and I went on Raya, and you have to be invited. So I had a bunch of people who I knew, who were well known, invite me onto Raya. Right. 14 years later, I go to look at the Raya account, and I'm still waiting on the waiting list. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Are you fucking kidding me? I had this friend. What'd you mean? Raya. This went Raya. Everyone's meeting on Raya. I'm on fucking Match.com. Like, this is like... No, right? This is not cool. So I write a letter. I go, hey guys, and here's the thing about being me. Someone Someone I know must work there. Someone hates me.
Yeah.
Someone kiboshed my email. They're like, Kelley Fahey, bam. They either work for me, I worked for them, whatever. Whoever it is, they don't like me.
Yeah.
So I go back on Raya and I write an email and I said, look, this has been 13 years. There's no possible way I'm still on the waiting list because I got some half-ass people who are not half as dope as I am getting on and dating, and I'm sitting around waiting. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. So
they write me back, cancel your thingamajiggy, do it again, and get a couple of sponsors. My friend John just comes back to New York. We're talking. He talks. He says, da-da-da, we're having drinks. And he says, something, Raya. I go back on Raya. I'm still on the waiting list. I have 37 recommendations, including a few very famous people. They will not let me on. So Raya, whoever you are, because I looked SCO and we went to LinkedIn.
It must be run by someone whose boyfriend you stole.
Someone hates my guts.
Or you didn't upgrade.
What happened, Raya? I want to talk about it because I'm going to be single forever and I'm blaming you because I think my husband is on Raya. Whoever he is. Really? He's on there. Maybe he's the owner. Maybe he hates me.
I hope my wife's on the street. I like meeting people on the street. I'm really good at that.
How's that worked out for you, Dean?
Fucking pretty good.
I mean, not just getting laid.
I'm single. Oh, no.
Wait, so I don't.
Not just getting laid
Okay, wait. I'm going to tell the story. Dean had a girlfriend. I was super excited about it, and I won't say where they went, but he was real happy about this girlfriend, and then he went on vacation with her.
Oh, Jesus.
And then he called me up. He goes, "Yo, she's the most fucking boring person ever. Like, I'm going to kill myself if I don't get the fuck out of here. You should never take a girl on vacation that you don't know very well." But he got stuck on like this crazy. What did you say to me? You said, this is like watching fucking paint. Whatever you said, it was so funny. You're like, he was on some island somewhere.
My mom's like, you don't go on a vacation with anybody until at least a year in.
100%. Yeah.
And I went in after a couple of months.
He literally called me up. He goes, you gotta get me fucking out of here. I'm like, eat my own arm off. She's the most boring person ever. And before that, it was amazing. You thought you were in love. It was like all cake.
Yeah, I was in love. Things change quickly.
You know, there's sand
like the weather.
And misery. Yeah.
I'm also, the older I get, like, I'm like, fuck the beach, man. I've never really been a beach guy. I know you're a beach guy.
I'm a beach person.
I've never like, if you give me a nice pool somewhere, a private pool on a cliff overlooking the ocean, perfect. But like the beach, I'm just like, I remember like going there in February, and then before that I was in like somewhere else, and I was just like, I'm just like, I'm a city kid. Like, I'm not a beach. I know you're a city kid, but I was like, for me, I'm just not a beach person.
See,
it's beautiful. I get all that, but
I have to really, let's bring it down to reality, and let's be honest. I have been on the beach in Brooklyn and Rockaway, sitting in the sand with my girlfriends, right? And I've been at a private pool, right? I'd rather be at a private pool.
Yeah.
I've been on the beach in like Bora Bora and on a private fucking yacht.
Yeah.
I'd rather
be there.
I'm
not
going to roll up my towel to Coney Island.
Let's take a yacht.
And not there's anything wrong with Coney Island.
But putting down a fucking towel and then and like an umbrella.
Oh,
Dean. And then you get sand up, you crack. It's just like, what the
Let's
fuck?
be very clear. I haven't towel beached in a long fucking time. Yeah, no, I don't towel beach. I mean, I'm going to probably have to towel beach again because, I did tell him to go fuck himself. So I might have to towel beach, but I'd rather towel beach than have his fucking head on my lap. Oh, whatever, fuck him. But yeah, no, when I don't really, I don't towel beach, but it is funny that you don't really know somebody until you go on vacation with them. And I fell in love with the on again, off again because of vacationing with him. Yeah. And then real life was when I was like, ugh,
it was
really?
The opposite,
Yeah, it was quite the opposite for us. So I've never seen you eat on film. Do you eat on camera?
Do I eat on camera?
I don't think I've ever seen you eat on camera.
When I was on Sex and the City with Sarah at the sushi bar, I think.
You didn't eat?
I didn't eat.
There's no food in your mouth.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't eat because I was like,
because it's gross.
Like, yeah, no, I like that stuff.
So we have a mutual friend who I won't name, but you might have been on a TV show with, a male who used to live on Grand and Thompson, and he knows who he is, but I'm not going to say his name, who should never eat on film.
Why?
It's just
chomping.
It's unattractive.
Yeah, I've never. It's funny. It's like, I've done like, done a lot of shit over the years. I don't think I. Oh, you know what? I ate once.
What was it?
I was on 30 Rock with Tina.
I'm going to have to watch this to see if you eat gross on film.
Tina's like, to this day, she's probably one of my top 3 favorite people in the business.
I'm one of the, well, now that I'm in the business, can I be the second favorite?
Okay. 4. But,
I'm the 4th.
We do this scene where, and I'd never eaten on film before. And we do the scene where we're in bed, she's falling asleep, and we have like 20 cheeseburgers from McDonald's.
I love that.
I start eating the burgers. And this prop guy would walk over with a bucket for me to spit into it.
No,
so I would do the thing, I would eat it, and he'd bring the bucket over, and I didn't know what the bucket was for. I'm like, no, I'm good. Yo, I ate fucking there was 25 cheeseburgers there, and I ate half of 24 of them. So I ate 12 cheeseburgers.
Of course you should.
And I don't think I've ever gotten that sick in my entire life.
You got sick from it?
The guy's like, the bucket was for you to spit it out.
That's amazing.
I was like, you want me to eat food and then spit it out in front of people?
That's so gross.
I'd rather go throw up in the bathroom.
100%.
Yeah, so there you go.
Well, I went.
That's like the one time I ate.
I worked at Atrium Relief for a hot second. It's gone now. It was a place on West
really
Broadway,
that
but
place, yeah.
we did a wine tasting and we did the whole sip and spit.
Yeah.
And I was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. That is the grossest. Feel it around your mouth and then spit it out. And there's nothing you should have in your mouth and ever spit out. Just saying, if it's in your mouth, you might as well,
Her lips to God's ears.
I mean, it wasn't God. It wasn't God I was talking about. Sorry, that was gross. Just kidding to my brothers and my nephews. Yeah, I would never spit anything out. And I don't think I've ever seen you eat. I've not seen you on 30 Rock, which is a problem.
Well, I was thinking, why is this eating? Why is this the thing for you?
Because when you know someone, so we have the luxury of knowing a lot of actors. And there are certain moments I never want to see your penis on film. It's why I didn't watch Oz. And other friends of ours are on the show. I didn't want to watch that. And the other thing that I've only seen a few of our friends do on film is fucking eat. And it's gross. They're out of character when they're eating.
I'm trying to think of I think eating is a very self-conscious act too. I think that it's hard.
You can't eat in character.
I think it's hard, but you know who pulled it off? Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11.
First of all, Brad Pitt can pull anything off.
Yeah, but he's eating the entire fucking movie.
But see, that's a character choice though.
He's the only person I can think of on film that ate where I wasn't annoyed by it. It kind of worked for the character.
I'm going to go back and watch, but most of the people...
He's eating the whole movie. He's like eating chips and salsa, and he's eating French fries and this and that. And
but you know what?
It's like a nervous tick for him. And
I think he does that. If you think about it, he's in that movie where he plays the workout guy. I don't know what movie that is. Where it's like a funny guy who works in a gym.
the Coen Brothers movie. Yeah, I forget. Yeah.
Whatever that is, I think he eats in that too. I think that's a funny thing. I think that might be a thing for him.
Yeah, and he also ate in. Funny, he's eating in a bunch of movies.
We're discovering a Brad Pitt moment that no one else knows. Did we just fucking aha something? We just had an aha moment where Oprah.
Brad
Pitt's happening here.
He's kind of like the Mount Everest, right? I mean,
Brad Pitt can do any fucking thing he wants.
It doesn't get much better than Brad.
It really doesn't get much better than that.
I mean, I honestly do not know.
Everyone he fucks gets hot too.
Yeah,
do you remember Jennifer Aniston hot? She went from not hot to hot.
Gwyneth
Paltrow.
I seriously do not know.
What the fuck happened? He's got magic sperm.
Male actors are very hard about giving it up. Oh, blah, 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 they have a hard time paying compliments. I guarantee you there's not a male actor on the planet who wouldn't tell you that Brad Pitt's his number one favorite fucking actor of all time.
First of all, I'm not number one actor, but he's hot. But you know who literally I was like taken back by meeting, and I'm going to forget his name. I'm the goddamn worst. Who's the dude, Wolf of Wall Street?
DiCaprio?
Well, yeah, him. I met him out one night with David, and he's like a big man. Like I was expecting him to be a skinny little dude.
He's like 6'1".
No, he's like a hot.
Yeah. He's a cool kid.
I don't know about that. I think I got fluttered.
I did a thing called Get Out the Vote thing with De Niro and DiCaprio and Ed Norton and Ben Stiller and De Niro, and I met DiCaprio then.
That is a bucket of people I want to have sex with.
Yeah, I would never profess to say I knew him, but I remember him being a real gentleman.
Ed Norton, I met with Brett Ratner at the premiere of Red Dragon. I couldn't speak. Yeah. I couldn't get the words out. No, that's my bucket list right there.
He's fucking amazing.
He's fucking amazing.
There's a lot of great actors out there that you don't really, and he's one of them, that you don't really see a lot of.
If you could work with one actor, because I swear to God, I want you to work with Desmond Harrington. I think you two should play brothers in something.
If you put me into a time machine.
Yeah. Time machine.
I would want to work with Mickey Rourke in the 80s. It's funny, you talk about Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt talks about this. Mickey Rourke was the best. For my generation, he was the guy that we all looked up to. And
I met him at Peggy Sue's.
Was that? Yeah. And then I ended up knowing him a little bit. He
was a friend of my brother's. He was
But a lot of these cats, I really wish that I could see more of. Like, you don't really see Ed Norton very much, and it's all by choice. You don't really see Daniel Day-Lewis. You don't see Mickey Rourke.
I would love you with Duvall. I would love you with Robert Duvall. I think you and Robert Duvall work would.
Those are the guys that I miss. I was always really attracted to like the character actor, like more character than leading men. And like my favorite Brad Pitt film is Snatch, because like, he plays this Irish, pikey, and he's so good in that. And then like, when you see Mickey in like Angel Heart or Daniel Day-Lewis,
anything, my God.
Like, but you see these guys, but they were doing like real character stuff. You don't get a lot of that much anymore. I think a lot of what you see now is just really kind of like, it's just kind of like a lot of vanilla wafer actors. You know, a lot of guys who spend way too much time in the gym on, you know, doing GHB and steroids, and their bodies are more important to them than the craft. And I see it, it's on the daily. And it's hard to find these guys, the Sean Penns and the people
What about a woman?
I mean, Angelina Jolie's she's a fucking beast. I just saw.
Really? She'd be someone you'd like, this is someone on your bucket list to act with. I would not pick that.
Fucking Lily. I just saw the screening. I just saw the premiere of Maria, where she plays Maria Callas.
No, I didn't see it.
Unbelievable.
Really?
She's a bad motherfucker.
Really?
I like to lean back into the old school. The guys that I looked up to when I was coming up were Duvall, Lee J. Cobb, Steve McQueen, you know, all these guys that were just, they had fucking grit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
well, you are that dude, though, to be honest. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. You are that dude.
You know, it's nice to hear, but it's like Duvall, like, I don't know if America has produced a better actor than Robert Duvall. I mean, you watch The Network, you watch The Godfather, you watch Apocalypse Now, you watch, you know, The Great Santini, this thing and that thing. I mean, the guy's so good. Right, and those are the
Apostle. How about the Apostle?
And the Apostle. You know, he and Bill Esper were roommates.
No, I didn't know that.
So like, you know, so Duvall came from the whole Misers, you know, the Miser type thing.
I wanted Duvall and Dennis Hopper to do a film together.
Oh, fucking Dennis
Hopper. Together. Could you imagine? I mean, they were in Napalm in the Morning. What is it? We just They were in it together.
Like Dennis Hopper. I mean, that guy was
incredible.
I mean, are you fucking kidding me? First of all, Easy Rider is what started the independent film in America.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the guy was such a wild man, living in New Mexico, making independent films, taking acid, painting, causing a lot of trouble, getting arrested. He was the guy, he was living that thing that
he was an actor by craft, but a human being, and didn't change who the fuck he was, which is amazing.
He didn't give a fuck.
Because, by the way, there was no TikTok and Instagram, and no one was.
He didn't give a fuck. And
so, you know, I met his daughter, one of my dearest friends, Ruthana Hopper. I met at Esper. Ruthana and we became friends at William Esper. That's why I know Ruthana.
Yeah, I met her once or twice, and you know, the movie that made me become an actor was when I was like really on the fence about doing it, because it's a big leap of faith. It was right before my brother took me in to meet Bill Esper. And I went to 19th and Broadway, and I went to see The Indian Runner, directed by Sean Penn. And it's David Morse and Dennis Hopper and Charles Bronson. The Indian Runner, I sat there, and the credits rolled, and I sat through the second screening of it. I was fucking dumbstruck.
I need to see this. I never saw it.
Oh my God. One of Viggo Mortensen's first films. It's such a beautiful movie, and it was about two brothers that are from the complete opposite sides of the spectrum. And, you know, I come from a family of brothers. I have a sister, but there's three brothers. And my brothers and I, they're my best friends, but we're wildly different.
Yeah.
And this movie...
It's that Irish Catholic family thing.
And this movie struck a chord. It struck a chord with me. And I was like, okay, I want to do that. And then I had just seen Do the Right Thing for like the third time, like the week before, and I was like, God, fucking Spike Lee's a genius, right?
And he just worked with Spike. I don't know if I can say that, but he just did a Spike Lee film.
So 30 years later, I just finished doing a movie with Spike Lee and Denzel Washington and Jeffrey Wright. I mean, I get emotional thinking about it. It was like Spike took a real chance on me and gave me this gift to doing this movie, which is going to come out next year. It's called Highest to Lowest. And to be on set with Denzel Washington and Jeffrey Wright, I mean, I was just like, I was literally sitting there
saying the same shit about you.
Pinching myself.
I'm not lying though. You don't know that about yourself. They're saying the same thing about you. No, you don't. I'm not. They are saying the same thing about you. You cut yourself. You don't know how much energy and presence you have in the.
Well,
trust
nice
me.
To hear,
they're saying the same thing about you. It's a fact.
It's nice to hear, but I just the truth of the matter is like it's still a grind. I just had my second call back yesterday. It's my third audition for this show. And it's like, you know, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm still doing this at my age. But at the same time,
you love it though.
I love it because, you know, Michael Keaton said a long time ago, you have to treat auditioning like you're given a chance for 5 minutes to act. Yeah. And just fucking do it.
Do it.
Don't be a fucking pussy. Just do it. And that's the mentality that I've adapted, right? And so I'm very grateful for where I am. I have a very simple life, a great life. I have a nice house. I got my friends. I got you, blah, blah, blah. And so like, I don't need the excesses of fame and the excesses of wealth. That's why I live in New York. Like I do my thing with my friends. One of my friends owns a limo company. One of my friends in pharma. One of my friends is a fucking.
You're chilling with bike riders. You got fucking messenger. You have your friends across the spectrum.
No, so
that's me. I think it's what.
Yeah, so it's
a New
like
York thing.
Yeah, and so I'm very grateful for what I have, and I have a very blessed life. It hasn't been easy, but I mean. Fuck, man. When's the last time anything good came from being easy, right?
One of the things about Dean that's really incredible and that I think we bonded with is that he is from a really tight-knit Irish family. Yeah. And I'm Irish and Italian, but
Irish, Scotch Irish.
yeah. So the Irish took over. The Italians were just waiting.
Yeah.
The Italians were cooking the food.
Irish
the
blood always
were,
takes over.
And we take everything over, and then we feel guilty about it. We have the same ethics, you and I. I think we always had the same kind of family love.
Yeah.
But also our brothers were, and our sister. I mean, you had the same. I met your mom. I fell in love, and we fell in love. We met once.
My mom was in love with you.
I met your mother once.
Yeah.
And
my mom was like, "Why aren't you dating Kelley?"
Yeah, because I'm not Asian.
Come on,
but that's it. Scene.
Touche.
Thank you so much for coming on this.
That's my pleasure.
Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I cannot wait to see what you're doing next. I
love you.
I love you too. Hey guys, thank you so much for showing up for Still Can't Cook. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcasts, on YouTube or any other podcast provider. And if you're on Instagram or TikTok, please follow us at Still Can't Cook. Love to have you guys back every week. So happy that you joined us and look forward to seeing you next week.